Hey everybody, how are you? It's the Suzette Speaks Show live, whether you're watching on my YouTube channel or on Facebook. Welcome. It's been a minute. I know. Did you miss me? I know. I've been doing radio. It's been an interesting journey this year. I want to wish everybody a happy holidays and thank you so much for being a supporter of this channel. Make sure you hit the like and follow buttons if you haven't done so already. We're almost at the end of 2024. Can't wait for 2025. And in the spirit of what you know I love to do, talking to people, getting to know people and their journeys, I have a very special guest today. She is an author out of New York, and she has written a brand new memoir. It's called The Voice Beneath the Quince Tree, right? We've been talking a lot about politics. You know, I love politics, understanding the world, international relations, all of that. And her experience growing up as a child in Romania. At the time, it was an oppressive dictatorship that was in control of the country. And she talks about in this memoir how she and her family made it out. So without further ado, I want to welcome for the first time on the Suzette Speak Show. We actually just did a radio, but now she's here on the YouTube side. I want to welcome Miss Maria-Cristina Necula. Welcome, Maria. How are you?
Hi, Suzette. It's great to see you. And hello to your audiences. I'm very excited to be here with you today.
You love it. I see it. Michael Miller, how are you? Yep. Family leaving tomorrow. Listen, hit the like button. We're sharing the love. It's the holiday season, but we do like to introduce our audience here to just new people with interesting perspectives, and she is one of them. And as she goes into a little bit about who she is now, I want her to talk more about what she wrote and why, because I think this book is very timely for everything that we see going on in the world. We can learn from what has happened in the past. So welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I was born in Bucharest, Romania, and I immigrated to the United States when I was 12, thanks to my father who defected when I was 10. And now I've become a writer. My first love was opera, so I was an aspiring singer for several years, but gradually I've become a writer and have a few books out. And I'm also working in higher education. I'm the director of alumni engagement at Lehman College, which is part of City University of New York. I just wrote this memoir, Now the Voice Beneath the Quince Tree, about my experience growing up in Communist Romania.
Yes. So what inspired you to do this now? Of course, there's always no time like the present to get a story out there. But as you talked about just now, it's a very moving and very inspirational story. So what about, now felt like the right time to put your story out there?
When I wrote about it before in shorter versions, or I would tell people who are curious about my journey from Romania to the US, I saw the interest. And then I had the opportunity to be part of the Writers Institute at the Graduate Center in Manhattan. So when you're part of that institute, you need to have a project. And I had already played around with a first chapter for this memoir. I was a little reluctant because I thought, oh no, another Cold War memoir. There are many out there. What do I have to say that might be different? But the reaction I got from my writer colleagues and the editors who lead the program the reactions were so encouraging. And they said that you're bringing this perspective of a child, you're giving us an inner glimpse of what it was like to be a kid in that era. Just keep going. So I kept going, wrote chapter after chapter, and I finished it. And it was amazing to see it as a completed work and then publish it.
That's fantastic. So again, we're here with author of a brand new memoir called The Voice Beneath the Quince Tree, Miss Maria-Cristina Necula, talking about how she kind of decided to put it all out there. And again, it's an interesting read. I want to encourage you to look her up, look up this book and check it out, because again, there are a lot of powerful life lessons throughout this book. Now, let's talk about the title. For those who don't know, and I just learned from interviewing you on radio here, what a quince tree is. It's an evocative title. Where did that title come from and what's the meaning?
The quince tree played a big role in my life. First of all, it was the biggest tree in my backyard in the house in Bucharest. I used to play around it and was fascinated by its fruit, the quince, because my mom would turn it into preserves and jam. And I thought the tree was magical because it could do that. I didn't realize the process involved. And then when I first saw opera, I started to act out scenes. I would pretend that I was an opera singer and play out a scene in my backyard. And the quince tree would be my character, my partner in that scene. So I sang to it. I would imagine that the leaves were applauding me, things like that. And then I also read a lot outdoors under the tree and played with words. So the title to me represents the fact that my voice was able to come out from beneath the tree in either the singer or the writer manifestation.
I'm muted. Sorry. We have a beautiful author here, Miss Maria-Cristina Necula, sharing her brand new memoir with us. We have people checking in from around the world. Shout out to Mike Miller. We see you. The Ab X-Girl, hi, all from North Carolina by way of NYC. Welcome. Thank you for checking in, residing near Lehman College. You know where that is? Okay, we have a home team here. Thank you.
That's so great to hear. Thank you for being here.
And welcome. I see one of my fantastic moderators. It's been a minute, girl. Hey, RM, Feminine for the Win. She also has a wonderful channel here on YouTube, and I always appreciate her support and everybody watching. Again, this is Suzette Speaks Show Live. We're closing out the year, y'all, with an interesting conversation. I just brought this conversation to my radio listeners on FM radio here in South Florida, Miami, Fort Lauderdale. Shout out to my guests. And now I was like, we got to put it on YouTube because it's really important, what you shared. So when you are thinking about doing the memoir, you again are talking about your childhood under a really oppressive dictatorship, the Nicolae Ceaușescu of Romania. Again, we can't get into all the details, but it's an interesting, very harsh regime that was in Eastern Europe, and basically took away people's rights and freedoms. So you were kind of sheltered from that by your mom. So your mom played a very, critical role in helping to keep you safe and allowed your, creative juices and your imagination to, run wild. Talk a little bit more about how she connected you to opera and how that impacted you so deeply.
So she took me to the opera when I was 10, and that was just a few months after my father had defected. We were being persecuted. I mean, she was trying to shield me from all of it. And she decided one evening, let's go to the opera. It's something different. And she took a little bit of a risk because you don't know how a kid is going to react when you sit through 2 hours or 3 hours of an opera. But I was mesmerized from the beginning. And even that very night, the magic universe that opened up to me by seeing the stage, by hearing those voices, like thinking that a human throat can produce such voices, I was in awe and in love. And I decided on the spot that I would become an opera singer. And then throughout the 2 years that followed, while we were waiting to join my father in the US, we kept going. I kept pushing my mom to take me back to the opera. I got to know a famous singer there. So he opened up the backstage universe to the world of opera, and it has enriched my life in a million ways later.
That's beautiful. So as you've been talking about your childhood growing up in a very oppressive regime, again, in Romania as a young child, you've written out your memoir and talking about the unique ways in which music and your mother using opera to help shield you really impacted you. Talk about some of your fond memories. What are some of your earliest memories when you can recall some of your most vivid moments of, creative escape that your mom was able to provide?
I think to me that's the most powerful one. Being that first night at the opera, it just, it stands out as all of a sudden taking this kid who, when I had watched opera for the first time on television, I started making fun of it. I saw Maria Callas singing an aria, and I laughed at this funny voice. I tried to imitate her, but I didn't find it that fascinating. My mother was also a pianist, so she would play piano sometimes, and I think the magic was increased in my house in Bucharest to have those summer evenings when you would hear piano music drift in and out the house, and throughout this garden that was my own private palace. And all of those moments contributed to me then really, really gravitating towards music.
That's amazing. So talk a little bit more about this lack of freedom, because I think what plays an underlying role in the book is you being sheltered from what was really, an oppressive regime that was taking away freedoms from everyday human beings. That's why your father decided to leave first, and then, of course, your family then followed. Just talk about certain things like freedom of expression and things that seemed off limits at the time. And did that seem abnormal to you at the time, or how did you process that as a child?
I'm sad to say that it did not seem abnormal because I knew no other life. This was my life as a child. So the fact that there were only two channels of television, and they were censored, so heavily controlled. You could see Nicolae Ceaușescu's visits or communist films or all kinds of propaganda. Then, of course, you couldn't express yourself freely in the newspaper or in magazines or even in speech. People could get arrested for simply making a joke.
Wow.
But I had no awareness at the time of all of that because my life was school, my friends, my parents, my garden, my cats, my books. And I think the only thing that seemed very, very scary to me at that time were sometimes the teachers in school because there was physical abuse. So I saw kids like being hit, and it just some horrible scenes of physical abuse of children that was permitted, and it kept us in fear of the teachers. But other than that, like on a larger scale, larger arena, I didn't realize how wrong this all was.
Wow. Talk a little bit more about that. I'm here with author Maria-Cristina Necula, talking about her new memoir, The Voice Beneath the Quince Tree. Talk a little bit more about what you saw under this oppressive regime. When you look back, of course, you were hidden from a lot of the very terrible and consequential government interventions that like kept people locked up, jailed, all of that. Talk a little bit more about looking back, what you saw that made you wonder, did this make sense? Things that you saw in your environment. You were a child, and again, your mother and your dad tried their best to protect you from all of it. But what can you recall living under that oppressive regime? Things that stood out to you that made you know that we're not living in, normal times.
I think most of it started to sink in after my father escaped. First of all, his defection was a shock to me because I didn't understand why he did it, and why a kid is thinking about their immediate environment. So why would he leave me? And my mom tried to explain that it was all for a better life and a better future. And then after he left, there were strange things occurring. He would try to call, and I'd hear clicking and hissing on the line as though there was like a tape recorder recording everything. Then letters would be thrown over the fence open, any mail from him, so that we would know that they were reading it. I was actually followed to school by a Securitate agent. Securitate is the secret police. So I remember this man in a suit and sunglasses and coat just waiting outside at my house as I walked to school and watching me. All of these things were weird, and it was hard for me to understand why they were happening until later on.
Wow, I'm grateful that she's here. Again, author Maria-Cristina Necula, talking about her new memoir, The Voice Beneath the Quince Tree, about her family's escape from communist Romania into the United States. Again, the role of music and the arts and how that provided an escape for her. It's a moving, very telling, eye-opening, riveting, I can go on memoir, encouraging everyone who's watching to check it out, because again, there are a lot of life lessons that come from it. And especially with the world as, topsy-turvy as it is, with so much going on in geopolitics, international relations, I think this gives some great insight, right? We can learn from others. We can learn from others' experiences as she's sharing them through this new book. So she's talking about her experiences, again, being a child in a communist country. Nobody really can understand, why is my mother being, you spoke about when we did the radio interview, your mom being held for long periods of time, after work. Talk a little bit more about that, where you didn't understand where she was in the evenings.
She would leave sometimes in the afternoon and tell me that she's going to be absent for a few hours. And if she doesn't come back in 4 hours, I should call my grandparents. And instinctively, even though she would try to smile and be reassuring, as a kid you pick up on things even though you don't understand that you're picking up on terror, but you are. And I would ask, why do I need to call my grandparents? And she would say, well, they always love to hear from you. And I would ask, why wouldn't you come back? And then she tried to joke around or try to avoid answering. Much later, I found out that every week she was called into the Securitate Center. That was the secret police building where she was being interrogated, and she was pressured to give in the same statement over and over again to see if there were any deviations, if she would betray her husband in any way. So later I realized how brave she had been and how strong to try to shield me from all of this.
Wow, this is so powerful, you guys. Again, when we hear these words, communism, dictatorship, totalitarian government, it's really important that we get, firsthand accounts of what this means, because we don't really understand it. I think sometimes those words are just, bandied about. But she has been writing for much longer than this book. You have other books also, author, professor, Maria-Cristina Necula is here with us, just kind of giving us a sense of what her new memoir is about, The Voice Beneath the Quince Tree. Again, her family's transition from Communist Romania to the United States. So talk a little bit more about what your mom did. First of all, she's my superhero. Looking and thinking about, some of the clips from the book, what rituals, what traditions, what did she do? Because I think it's so powerful how even in the midst of a very oppressive regime, what she dutifully tried to do to protect you and the family from feeling the effects of the oppression that was going on outside. Talk more about those traditions and things that she did to try to keep you feeling stable and safe.
I think just being there and being positive, and for instance, even watching over me when I was doing my homework. I was struggling with math, for instance, and we were pressured to be so good in math to participate in the Math Olympics. So she would sit with me while I went through all those problems. And the thing is that the electricity would get cut off. So I always called it math by candlelight, because we had to actually do our homework and all those things by candlelight for hours in the evening. That, and also taking me to the opera, also trying to infuse some joy and entertainment into our lives during that time, so that it was not all dreary and oppressive. For instance, she tried, even though there was scarcity, you could still go out sometimes, go to a restaurant and so on. So she would try to do that, to create these special moments during a time that was very difficult for both of us.
Wow. She's my superhero. Again, we're
Thank
talking
you.
with author Maria-Cristina Necula. Google her, look up this memoir. It will be very interesting. Again, for the times that we're living in now, I feel this is such an appropriate and timely piece that you're putting out to the world, giving them insight into your childhood and what it was like. So your mom definitely wanted you to take something away from being exposed to the arts, being exposed to opera. What did you think, looking back now, she wanted you to glean by giving you those magical experiences?
I think the sense of possibility, the sense of magic, the sense of just the expansion of your feelings and your emotions. Because what opera does is opera dilates emotions. It makes them larger than life, and it kind of releases things in you that maybe you didn't know you were feeling. And she gave me a great gift. The opera became such a treasure in my life that has influenced my later journey in so many ways. So besides being an oasis, a refuge, it was a gift that I took with me throughout the years. And even now, opera is still a big part of my life.
I love it. I was playing some of your music on the radio. I don't know if I'll have a chance to do it now, but as we wrap up, again, I just wanted to introduce my audience to incredible people doing incredible things, like yourself. When you're looking back, again, this memoir is from a child's perspective, and looking back after you became an adult, your family, I don't want to ruin it. I want to kind of people to read it, but getting out of this, dictatorship and leaving, coming to the United States, looking back after you realize, the horrors, the things that really were going on under the Ceaușescu regime, how did it reshape your memories, perhaps the way you lived and thought about how you were living and growing up underneath it?
It amazed me. It amazed me, and it made me so grateful and so in awe of my parents and my friends' parents and my relatives, because here you have these adults going through all of that and at the same time trying to offer a childhood to their kids, because they did offer us a childhood with its moments of joy and play and magic and laughter, and how they were able to protect us from that external world as much as they could. I'm just in awe of all of them, everybody who was an adult at that time, or older, an older or child too, who knew more of the reality. Because I had friends who were older and who were more aware, but there was this inner sense of protecting children. Wow. Just so they wouldn't experience the terror firsthand.
Wow. Again, powerful lessons for today, you guys. We have to wrap. She is on a schedule. And again, thank you everybody who's watching Team Replay, or if you're catching this live. Hey, Mandrell, thank you so much. Those watching on the Facebook and the YouTube side, please hit the like button and comment. Of course, we appreciate everybody watching. But as we wrap up, I want to ask you if you could go back and have a conversation with your younger self, knowing what you know now. Of course, you've written again this memoir from your childhood perspective, right? Growing up again under a communist regime, many of us cannot even imagine what that would be like. So that's why I'm so grateful that you put pen to paper to share. Again, there's hope always in some of the darkest places, guys. There's so many themes of resilience. I can't even keep going. But anyway, what would you tell your younger self about, how those moments in communist Romania, where you were able to experience music and art and culture, how would they impact you today? What would you tell your younger self?
I would tell her that it's okay, that all of the sadness at leaving behind the childhood home and friends and family, it somehow will get transmuted towards maybe, I don't know, a higher purpose and into an interesting journey, a fascinating journey, and the ability to then share that period of time with the world as a cautionary tale, just to show what it can be like and what it happens in other places of the world as well, when a dictator takes power and just takes a regime to absurd extremes. Yeah. So I would tell that child that everything was worth it, and this kind of split between her native country and her adopted country, the US, which I'm so grateful to because it has given me so much. This split is where so much creativity came from, in bridging these two lives, the lives of the kid and the lives of the adult.
That is a very American story. Hello. There's so much more I would love to ask you, but we're out of time. Tell people where they can find your new memoir, The Voice Beneath the Queen's Tree. Where can people find you and get more information about the book?
It's on Amazon, and I also have a website. I know it's my very long name, Maria-Cristina Necula.com, but it's on Amazon. That's the easiest way.
Perfect. You are amazing. Thank you for doing double duty, coming off the radio interview, coming onto the YouTube interview. We appreciate you. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and thank you in that cold NYC weather. You have spent some time with us here in sunny Florida and around the world. Again, we have checking in from Arlington, Virginia. We appreciate you. I know Alabama, Louisiana's in the building. Hey, Mandra, what's up? Great to have everybody. Again, thank you so much, RM, and my other wonderful moderators and everybody watching today. All right. Happy holidays, everybody. We're out of time. But again, I want to thank my special guest, Maria-Cristina Necula, for spending some time with us here on the Suzette Speak Show.
Thank you so much for having me, and happy holidays to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hit the like button, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.